mantras that I kind of repeat to stop the hamster wheel. It's like, you know, if you try to stop thinking about the hamster wheel, then all you can see is the hamster wheel. So I do these prayers and mantras, and there's no room. Okay. So I guess the question is, in asking for insight, I do it in a couple of ways. One of the things I say in asking for insight is, God will show me. Another thing I say is, let's see what God makes of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how much, but I'm a creator. So how much am I giving away in that? But, so here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a, 16-year-old car, something, love my car, and they smell gas, so I take it to the shop, and there's a fuel line leak, and there's an oil leak, and there's a coolant leak, and these are deep down at the heater core and the lower gasket, so that's a lot of labor. So it's like, $1,300 if I go to the shop, less if I find a good backyard mechanic. So it's time to stop and say, is it time to keep my good old beloved car and put more in it than a blue book's for? Or is it time for me to get a new car?
Mm-hmm.
And I go around on that a couple of times, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get the fuel line fixed, because you can't drive with a broken fuel line. The other two can wait, and we'll see what God makes of this.
Mm-hmm.
And what could happen is...
Okay, stop. So, you had us until we'll see what God makes of this.
Yeah, and I've heard you call me a few times on this particular thing.
Yeah. So let us say something now.
Okay.
So what happens is, you did the thinking thing. You saw she let her brain help her, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hamster wheel mind that drives us bananas.
Mm-hmm.
The brain,
Right.
it's
So
there. It wouldn't be there if you didn't need it.
I used it well, and then I stopped it.
You
I was
stopped
like,
it?
I don't have
Okay.
enough information to keep thinking right
Exactly. That's the point we were trying to make earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's 20 things that you can think about this subject. Think all 20 and then stop.
now. Right.
Fair enough. Then you go insight. Well, my conclusion is fix the fuel line and ask for insight. Now, what you're doing with ask for insight is we'll see what God makes of this. We would take God out of the equation.
Why?
Because it doesn't acknowledge your true position in relation to your creation.
Yes, it does.
Actually, it doesn't.
There's a divine mind that I can benefit from, that I am a part of.
Yeah,
And
but
I have
why
to-
can't you just say I then? Why can't you say my soul? Why can't you say insight? Why can't you say I'm a creator and I am involved in a free will zone and God doesn't give a damn what I do because it's all great to God or interesting to God or fascinating to God anyway? We're not sure God has an opinion about your car is what we're trying to sell you on.
It doesn't ring true.
You're not gonna, you don't believe it, and we know that, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with us. But the way we energetically see it is this. There is the creator, okay?
Yes.
The creator of all things.
Right. That I call God.
You call God. And the creator of all things wanted to know itself.
Mm-hmm.
And in the expression of knowing itself, it created souls.
Correct.
And says souls go forth and experience.
Mhm.
And then souls will have every experience that can be experienceable and then reunite and God will have known itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the experience of your car breaking down or staying well, both of those are equally interesting.
Correct.
So if you leave it in God's hand to choose, God doesn't choose. God doesn't choose. God is. God is not a personality. God is a presence. God has
I get
no
that.
opinion about your car.
I get that.
So when you say, I've thought my thoughts, I'll ask for insight, and then I know as a soul, I'm creating experiences for which I learn so that I therefore can contribute to the knowing of God. So as I experience each thing occurring, then how I react to my experiences is how I actually am experiencing knowing myself. And that knowing of myself is how God knows itself. Not whether or not the car works, but
Yeah.
how I react to how
Correct.
the car
I get that.
interacts.
Yeah.
So when you say we'll see what God finds out, what we hear God saying is, well, we're waiting for you to tell us.
I don't always know what's best.
Because you're the actor in the play.
I don't always know what's best
Use the
for me.
microphone, please, so people can hear you.
I don't always know what's best for me.
Yeah, but what's best for you is whatever happens, handling it in the most conscious and aware way you can. It's not the best thing is the car lasts or the car doesn't last. The best thing is how I consciously interact with whichever one does occur. Because you're not saying what I need is for the car to last or
No.
I'm not safe.
No.
What you're saying is whatever happens in the next moment, how I interact with that tells me who I am.
Right.
And that's how you tell God who God is. So that you're generating the experience that tells God who God is, not the other way around. In the free will zone especially. Yeah, and it's backwards to what other people may... It's backwards to some of the other teachings that are out there, and it may be backwards to what feels true to you, and that's perfectly fine. But it's how we experience it. You are teaching God who God is.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I know that this is going to take some time.
Sure.
Because this is big switcheroo.
Yeah, and it's okay if it doesn't switcheroo.
Okay.
We just will say to you that when you were telling your story earlier, and you got to the point where you say, now I see what God has to say about it, you
Not
didn't...
what God has to say about it. Just when I say, let's see what God makes of this, it's like, let's see what unfolds.
Okay.
Let's see what unfolds.
Yeah.
Maybe I ask a friend of mine, do you know a good mechanic?
Exactly, but what is unfolding isn't generated by God, it's generated by you, is what our point. You are the generator of this experience, not God. God is the witness to your generation. That's the way we see the relationship.
I understand that. Okay, so I'm not going to take a lot of everybody's time.
And that's okay, this is important. Because what you're doing is saying, God said, I want to know myself, and created you. You go and do stuff, and then God says, wow, that's who I am. If you wait on God to act, especially in the free will zone, our experience is God just waits and watches.
Not my experience.
Because you are a creator, and you're attributing the experiences you're having to your relationship with God, and we say that it's for your relationship with your soul. Your soul is that magnificent that what you have attributed to God is actually attributable to your soul.
And what is my soul's relationship to God?
Your soul's relationship to God is the mechanism by which God will know itself in an expanded fashion. God was, the Creator is, and wanted to know itself. And to know itself, it needed something other than itself to learn with and from. That's why you learn from each other.
Okay.
So God said, let there be souls. And souls went off to have experience. And that's
So
why every
souls are the Godhead.
Well, we don't know what Godhead means.
Okay.
Yeah. The language here is really,
Yeah.
right? So as you say, I want God to show up in my life. I want to know God's vision of me. I want to have God's insight with me. We would say that all of those inquiries can be directed to your soul, because your soul is that magnificent. All the power that you have attributed to God is attributable to your soul,
Okay.
because God is bigger than that,
It's bigger than what?
than what you've considered.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
I get
So
that.
if you say, wow, my soul's so badass that it's really the mechanism by which I'm learning,
Okay.
then God gets to be even bigger
Okay.
than whether or not the car
Okay, I
goes.
can get that.
Yeah.
So I started out looking early
Yeah.
in my heart, always looking. And as a child, the only word you have that you're looking for is God.
That's right.
Because I was, baptized Episcopalian, went from that to Buddhist, to Krishna, to American Indians, to Sufis, to, just went through all of them.
Yeah.
Pick and choose. Take
Yeah.
what feels right. Take what feels right. Take what feels like truth. And now I'm here.
Yeah.
So I'm taking this new languaging and this new concept, and I'm seeing that it fits with some of my beliefs. It's a different language. And I also see that it's very helpful in that some of the old beliefs that were good when I was a baby spiritual, when I was in kindergarten's baby spiritual school, those can go now. They had to hold me so I could keep walking. But they can go now, and I have something bigger to replace them with that rings true. Thank you. Thank you. But some of the spiritual truths that I live by, I just have to understand that it's just a new language, and it's just a little bit of tweak on the vision.
Well, because when you consider the idea that you're interacting with your soul, then you are teammates in a journey of growth and exploration in a free will zone. See, it can't be a free will zone if God's in charge.
I understand.
God is a witness.
I understand.
Therefore, you're in charge. You know, you could say God loved you so much that he gave you this opportunity to be in a free will zone and to defy, if wished, to do whatever the hell you want.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. And it gives you and everyone else the opportunity to say, I'm going to learn everything. See, souls get to learn everything and experience everything because there isn't a limitation of anybody else saying how it should be.
So sometimes I'm just walking through my life, and I just get, boom, just hit with this incredible awe and love and wonder and just overwhelmment at this whole gig, this whole thing going on. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
And I just drop and surrender to it. And it's the only way I can contain it, experience it, you know, interact with it. So I just drop and surrender. I mean, sometimes I just like knees on the ground, head on the ground. Whoa!
Yeah.
It just drops me. And this is still fitting with what you're saying. It's just the magnificence.
The magnificence of it. You know, one of the things when Veronica was young, she was in a Christian background, right? And she always kind of just had this sense that their God is too small for me.
Absolutely.
Like their definition of God is too small.
Way too small. Which
Way
is probably
too small.
why I went Christian.
Yeah.
Buddhist, Krishna.
So the invitation here is if you decide that the soul thing makes sense to you, it lets God be bigger. And that's good. Because
I thought it made God smaller. Because this is just my little soul. This is just my soul. You know, there's this supra that we're a part of. So I thought it was making God smaller to say what you're saying, but I see now the difference. So I'll keep working on this.
Well, give it. See what it does in you. It doesn't. You don't have to believe us or agree. Just kick it around and see if it opens things in you.
Yeah. Well, I've been, you know, in these places saying, okay, I need the next step. I need the expansion. I need to drop some of this old stuff that's not serving anymore. But nobody's coming through with the new 2012 picture.
Yeah.
And you have, and I'm getting used to it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Who's next? Miss Gwen.
I'm going to try to, I'm trying to understand something about static.
Yes.
And when I'm feeling particularly sensitive and I'm wondering if when there's other people that are generating static in an area or a room, sometimes I don't know who is generating the static. Sometimes I clue into the fact that maybe I'm not, but because I'm noticing it or because it's somehow affecting me, I'm not staying in my own energy, or I'm also somehow a match to it, or I wouldn't even be noticing it. Or is there a way where I can, what I was working with, this was just last night, can I notice the static generated by another without it shifting me?
We want you to be able to.
Yes.
So it is possible.
Yes.
It's difficult for you.
Yes.
Yes. So let's look at our idea that we had with Randy when Randy showed us that energetic of how static is working. So right now, everyone's pretty clean tonight. So, but we can imagine that if you were in a room of people who weren't trying hard to be conscious, that the room would start to fill with all that pigpen dusty, right? So that dust could be stirred up.
It was such a good image.
Yeah, that is a good image.
Yes.
Let's change it just for this example to fire, right? So the thing about fire is that it needs fuel and it needs air or it don't work.
And am I going to fuel it or not?
Exactly. So that's the question, is you can feel that someone's static, their dust, their fire, whatever is there, Are you throwing little sticks on it? Are you blowing on it? And the sticks would be like what Randy was talking about, you know, where there's this button pushing thing, right? That you can get upset with someone, that they're doing something, you know, you feel that, right? It's like you're throwing static into it. Or the air, and this is probably yours, is kind of the nosiness thing. And the psychic nosiness that we talked about on Saturday, or the habit of being really sensitive and not putting more boundaries up between you and other people's energy. We have a sense that fuels the fire of static between two people. That there's a real clean way to be in the world that we're trying to teach you guys, and we're learning right along with you. This is a good example of like the God thing, right? God, we're kind of in that role where we're just witnessing. Oh, you're showing us something. You're showing us something. You're showing us something. We're in a witness mode with you. And then we're in a teaching mode too. But that's an example of that witnessing thing. Oh, look, that's how static works. We didn't know that before now. If you make more static or not, it's really not relevant in the witnessing place. It's equally fascinating. Energetically, that just ties into what you were saying. But in this conversation, the idea is that you're feeding that fire or that dust cloud with your attention, your energy, and your contributions.
Yes. So last night when I was in this, there were moments when I would be fully in it and I'd be like, oh my God, is that really me thinking that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. So then I was able to, at times, step out and come back into my own energy.
Yeah.
And then at times I was able to kind of like peek in a way and feel it. And what am I trying to say? I was trying to figure out how I could feel it without fueling it, without generating it, so that I could know whether it's mine or not.
Yeah.
And so that I could be more aware of when it is mine,
Yeah.
or when I'm just matching other people because I'm not holding my own energy very well. And there's one more piece and I can't quite remember what it was.
Well, let us say a few things and maybe it'll come to you.
Yeah.
Practice. For you, this is
Yes.
practice. You're aware of it. You're working on it. You don't suck because you don't have it down yet.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So practice and the inquiry is huge, right? 90% of all of this is consciousness, right? We've told you that. Catching it is 90%. So going, I feel a lot of static in this exchange. Some of it's probably mine. Instead of what's mine, what's not mine, some of it's probably mine, or some of it is mine, right? Some of the static is mine. So am I being nosy? Am I being judgmental? Am I making up stories? Am I in their energy field? Am I projecting into the past or the future? Right? So it's that step back into your heels thing.
Yeah.
So it's pull yourself back.
Right.
So we listed them. Let's do them again. Nosy, judgmental, past, future, making up stories. Or maybe we did past and future, 2 fingers. So those sorts of things that we've worked really hard with you guys about to alert you to, static generation devices. Do I think I suck is another one, right? Am I in this position of how am I handling the discomfort I'm experiencing? What is my coping mechanism? Because coping mechanisms tend to generate static too. It's what is my coping mechanism? Okay, instead of doing a coping mechanism, I'm going to this is my first choice to feel uncomfortable. And let that tell me something.
And that's where I got the gift of going, oh, okay, I can hold myself right here, and then I can kind of be observant.
Neutral observation.
Yeah. And that's when I started to really get the fact that maybe I'm being a match to it or something, or maybe I'm generating my own, but now I can step out of that and I can see it out there, which will help me own my own, or let go of what's not mine, or stay in my energy and come back in my own heels. So there was a gift in that.
Yeah, it's that when you recognize that you're doing those coping mechanisms that are generating static and you take them away from the equation, all the static has to drop to the ground because you're not feeding it. And then you're in, this is my first choice, which is neutral observation of the experience you're having. And then it's like, whoa, look at how magnificent this is. look at how big this is. Look at how much more is going on here than I was able to look at before. Because you have to remember, what we have called static tonight takes, and take static in the hamster wheel mind, the survival instinct and habit, throw in some fear just for fun. You take those 5 things, there's no room for God, your soul, your neighbor, or anybody else to add anything else into your life. You want to relate to people, you want to feel the oneness, you want to feel wholeness within yourself. These things have to go because they're taking up all the space. It's always good to think of it in terms of a computer. Your hard drive is full. So if you start taking away the things that are filling up your hard drive, there's room for new stuff to be there. And that's where we did the thing where you think until you're done thinking, then you ask for insight, which is putting new stuff on your hard drive, and then you're in muse until you see what rises to meet you.
And then is it still nosy?
Is it still nosy?
To practice with what somebody's generating over there, it's really loud what
Yeah.
they're generating. Is
Yeah.
it nosy for me to observe that?
Well, it depends on why you're observing it.
Right.
Are you
Oh,
observing it as a
absolutely.
fascination? Are you observing it out of fear? Are you observing it as trying to protect yourself?
No, I'm observing it as an exploration of how I feel energy and
Yeah, okay, so that's fine. That's just growing, right? You're observing that tree outside. You're observing that bird flying by. You're observing how energy moves in relationship. Just make sure that it's just their little campfire you're observing instead of the bonfire that you're contributing to. So don't contribute, just observe. Then you get to be in the witness space.
yeah.
We've told you that as you move into the level 7 and level 8, you start to become serious creators. Like you create in the physical. Like, I wish there to be a tree here, and a tree can appear. This is not outside of this lifetime for you guys. So then you're the witness. See? Then you're witnessing your creation. That's what we're building toward, where you're the witness.
Real quick,
Okay, you'll be next.
real quick.
Yeah.
Now, when the body hears, I'm asking for the insight,
Yes.
there is a split second where the body goes, woo!
Yeah. Survival instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you speak to that? And it probably won't take
Yeah,
much.
That's
but-
okay. Yeah, so you say, all right, I'm going to give away my coping mechanism of hamster wheel thinking. I'm going to give away my hiding in fear and discharging discomfort by going into familiar suffering. I'm going to give away everything that has worked sort of for me up until this point. Hasn't given me the life I've wanted, but at least it's kept me alive. And I'm going to say, I want insight from my soul, whatever that is.
Okay.
Survival instinct just goes, hell no, we won't go. And that's when you use spiritual discipline to say, look, just like when you've got to make a speech in front of 400 people and your body says no and you say yes. Right? The body says, no, we do not get out on a stage. This does not occur. And you say, actually it does. I want to get on an airplane. The body goes, no. You're like, actually, we want to go see the Sistine Chapel. Therefore, airplane is required. Right? You do it all the time
Right.
in those extreme ways. But this is doing it regularly, not falling into the coping mechanism, not falling into coping. That's one thing that's really coming out of tonight is this is another way to look at coping mechanisms, a place not to go to, because if you go to coping mechanism, you sort of miss that precipice where you can stand and say, I would rather stand in first choice about this and hold in that moment than run away. Because that doorway that opens when first choice really is experienced in this deep way takes you to the new places where you want to actually be. Go ahead. We should drink water. That's always a good idea. You probably have to adjust the microphone because you're tall.
All right.
You have to put your foot on it. And then you lift. Look at that. You got
Did
it.
it?
Yep. Well, actually, it needs to be in front of your face.
All right.
There you go. Look at him. He just does the whole thing. Fancy. All right. What is your name?
Mark,
Mark. How did you come to know about us tonight?
Gwen brought me.
Mm.
Actually, Gwen brought the awakening
Huh?
that I witnessed, and then I brought myself.
Yay! Nice. Look at you all fancy. Okay. Hit us. What you got?
Thank you so much. That was a great setup for where I was going. That moment of standing on the precipice and saying, yes, I am going to do this. I am willing to experience the exhilaration of let go. What I want to know from you is your experience as you do your own work of the majesty that beckons you. We've been talking a lot tonight, or I've been listening to a lot tonight, about how to pull ourselves up or let go of the coping mechanisms. Once we've done that, and we now step into this magnificence, what compels you? What pulls you ever deeper? And I just love to hear some more of you flesh out that radiance.
When you say you, do you mean us or you? Are you saying I, or are you trying to talk about from our perspective?
You're Eloheim.
Oh, our perspective isn't all that interesting. Yours is far more interesting to us, but we understand that sometimes it's interesting to hear our perspective. When we see you step into this space that, we're still creating the language for, we'll call it the space that where you live from aha to aha, right? Where you confront the discomfort, where you open the door to this is my first choice, and walking in the world really on an awareness of being a creator in a way that you haven't before. And you start to see these things fall into place, and you stay in that vibration. We're kind of calling that living from aha to aha until we have better language. You could say living from discovery to discovery, or living from growth to growth. We're not quite sure. We'll just stick with aha to aha for this night. What we see that changes in you is that you don't do this energetically. See, that's the thing that's the most dangerous, is as you start to vibrate at a higher and higher and higher level of consciousness, if you then go really super unconscious, that big jump is so hard on the physical form that the body stops trusting you. And when the body stops trusting you, it's in survival mode. And when the body's in survival mode, it's really hard to ascend it. We don't believe you can ascend a body, which means to infuse it with your soul's perspective, to walk on the physical plane with your soul's perspective online. You can't do that in a body that's constantly under siege by the survival instinct, because that body can't vibrate high enough in order for the soul to take root, let's say. It's not exactly the way we'd like to say it. It doesn't vibrate high enough for the soul to be able to access, to contribute. That wisdom that your soul has, you're not vibrating high enough for the wisdom of your soul to tune into your channel, let's say. We're stretching, looking for the right words, because we haven't actually phrased it this way before. So what we see is that when you are vibrating at that level, and your fluctuations in your vibrational level are little, like, this kind of thing instead of this kind of thing, there's like a collective exhale. Like, that thing, sigh of relief. And when you make that collective sigh of relief, what happens is you exhale limitation. And then your next in-breath, your next opening of your eyes gives you access to such a greater palette of experience. So as we watch you guys, we see you have this greater palette of experience happening. It's not unlike when you have a small child in your life and they try to walk, and then they start walking regularly. And all of a sudden, their world goes from being almost two-dimensional to being three-dimensional. That big of a change, that big of a paradigm shift is what we see when you guys start to live from aha to aha to aha. It's like all of a sudden you live in a world that has another dimension added on, has such expansion as to give you an awareness of yourself that is extraordinarily new. And for us, as we bear witness to that, that gives us growth. You see, we grow as you grow because we get to bear witness to a changed diorama. If you were in a relationship with a small child and that small child never did anything new, neither one of you changes. As that small child grows and changes and does new things, you grow and change too, right? Not to imply you're children, but it's just an easy comparison. You guys are far from children. You are doing one of the bravest things there is to do in the universe right now. This is not This is not for sissies. What do we say? Earth is not for wimps. Yeah, we said that one time. Yeah, Earth is not for wimps by a huge margin. So for us, the perspective change becomes that not only does it give us the opportunity to experience you new, it gives us the experience to experience ourselves anew and to know something about ourselves we didn't know before, which is the witness of what you're knowing about yourself. Just like we sat here and Randy brought up that thing and we watched your energy and we went, oh, that's how static works. Cool. Now that we know how it works, we can explain it to you. Because we're not sure any of the rest of you can see that energetic change. And even if you can, you might not have been able to put language on it and connect it to 20 other tools that we've been teaching for 10 years. So because we can do that, let's do it. And when we share that with you, then you take it, each of you, everyone who hears this, takes that little bit of information and goes like that, right? Expands out. And that's the God thing. So in a microcosm, that's exactly what we were explaining earlier to Kristen, is something occurs and then everyone takes their opinion, expression, experience of it and goes off, and then the witnessing of that is growth for the witnesser, while it's growth for the experiencer that you all are. The witness and the experience. We were just trying to think of something. Hang on one sec. It's okay. Doesn't apply. Did that got it? Good. Is there anybody else? We're just making sure we covered our list. Go ahead, Mary George.
I'm going to be clear about the static and.
Sorry, that's funny. I want to be clear about the static.
Yeah.
That was funny.
That was funny.
Yeah. We're probably the only ones who noticed, but that's okay.
Because we're not thinking about static in that way. At least I'm not.
Yeah, well, now we get to think about it in a new way, huh?
Yeah.
All right, talk to us.
I don't know if I can. Let me see.
Just take a swing at it.
It seemed like when you first started talking that you were suggesting that if we were really aware and neutral or something, that you could avoid the static. Whereas I would say I had an experience yesterday that I kind of skip over the first choice thing because everything that happens is my first choice, my creation. So in that situation, it seemed like maybe you were suggesting just to avoid the static altogether, whereas I would say, okay, I'm having a reaction, so I'm having that for a reason, so that I can look at this issue more deeply in another layer.
Yeah, exactly. But you looking at it doesn't generate static. Unconscious behavior is what generates static. If you're being
I was
conscious,
thinking the very fact that I felt the way I did about this situation.
that's baggage.
Okay, yeah. Well,
that's
yeah,
your package.
That's who I am.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the difference. This
Okay.
is good that you're illuminating this. So you show up, you're triggered, but you keep your mouth shut. You keep your emanation. You stay in your own energy. Right? This is all. See how all these things tie together? We don't just teach you guys this stuff randomly. So you keep your mouth shut. You stay in your own energy, and then you apply consciousness to your experience, so that when you do offer contribution, it's an emanation of consciousness and awareness, and even like, I'm confused, but still I'm doing my best, rather than coping mechanism, static, fanning the flames.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was all along.
Yeah, that's good. So your emanation, your conscious emanation, that is one way to offer yourself to the world, and static, which is unconscious behaviors, thoughts, and actions, is another way. That's we're probably going to talk about this for the next 6 months. We're just jumping into this real grown-up way of looking at your emanation in a new way, and static in a new way.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
I think the definition in the books about baggage is not anywhere near.
We're changing it. Yeah, things
Do
change.
you have to go back and change it?
No, you don't have to go back and change it, because we're probably not going to use the word baggage for for the constructive contribution to
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's too much negative stuff
Yeah.
in that.
The constructive contribution, we might call your package, although,
Yeah.
that sort of sounds like man
That's what I
genitalia.
said.
Yeah. Your parts. We don't want it to sound like your parts. So we'll come up with a better word.
Yeah.
But, we could even say your presence, right? That's maybe a good word to say, your presence. So,
Essence of who you are now. No,
your
that's
essence,
okay.
yeah. Well, that's a little, it
No.
fits, but it's kind of woo-woo, right? We gotta be
Yeah,
careful not to
we
use
don't
the
like
woo-woo
woo-woo.
words.
Presence is about your past.
Yeah, see, that's the thing with words, is if we pick a word that means something to a lot of people already, we'd rather make up a word than pick a word that means something to a lot of people already. As in the conversation about God, right? That's a big charged word that everybody's got an opinion about what it means. So a lot of times we won't use any word that already has an established common use. So
It's
we'll
sort of
come
like
up-
the set of personality traits that you decided to come into this world with.
Yeah, well, and we've called it the personality self before, so we may stick with that. Like, you bring your personality self here, and you infuse it with your soul's perspective. And that blended being is an ascended Homo spiritus walking the planet, right? And what we have called baggage in the past is really going to be meaning when you show up with your wounds in the front. Instead of your wounds being something you're consciously attending to, it's how you approach the world with your wounds. And then you use those wounds, your baggage as sticks on the fire, and your nosiness and judgments and all those other things to blow on the fire and create lots of static. And the thing is the static isn't just between you and another person, although it can very well be. It's the static is between you and the things you desire, infinite possibilities, magnetizing needs met, and all the other things you want. That's what static really gets in the way of.
That reminds me of something I was going to say. You were searching for some way of describing living from aha to aha. It seems like what we're sort of driving towards is just being constantly aware of the soul's perspective.
Yeah, well, that's ascension, right?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm skipping ahead.
You're skipping only a little, but you overachieving light workers were not surprised. Yeah, so there's that too. The ascended state.
Okay, good.
All right, so you've worked hard, so we're going to tell you what level 8 is.
What?
What level 8 is,
Oh, level.
right? You want to know what level 8 is.
Yeah.
You've worked hard tonight, and you paid close attention, and you got it. So not like it's a reward as much as it's the natural outflow of consciousness studies is further consciousness, right? Yes. So the investment of consciousness results in more information. Okay, so we'll just start at level 5. Level 5, this trigger is mine. Level 6, what trigger? Level 7, oneness, right? Did we just say oneness? Is that all we said? Did we have more words? Was it just oneness?
Wholeness.
No, it wasn't wholeness
Oneness.
leads to oneness, but there was something about we're
Roll one.
all one or something like that. It's all me. It's all me. That's it. It's all me.
You're right.
It's all me, which is oneness, but said in a more empowering way. Instead of oneness being a concept, it's all me. Takes it back to ME, which is always good. It's all me. We were already in level 8. That's why I couldn't remember level 7. Level 8. Watch it move. Watch. You become the witness, right? Ties into what we were talking about earlier. And we'd already told Veronica level 8 a couple days ago, so this is nice that it organically shows up in your experience together tonight. But that's what we already said. Watch it move. It might be watch it grow, but we think move is more fun. Watch it move. And in that sense is what happens is, as you know it's all me, then you watch it all move from the witnessing space. And your creation perpetuates. You see, that's what happens here, is the creation perpetuates. And level 8, your creation perpetuates. And since it's always your first choice, you're not putting any static in between you and your creation perpetuating. It's down the road. Don't rush. We're not even fully out of level 6 yet. But you opened the door and you got the words. So good job. Excellent job tonight. Excellent. Thank you. That's it. We're done.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.